The wind howled across the jagged cliffs of the alien planet, carrying with it the faint scent of salt and stone. The sun barely pierced the thick, gray clouds, leaving the landscape bathed in a cold, silver light. Hidden among the rocks was a dark cave, its mouth half covered by hanging vines and jagged stones. Inside, a small bundle lay on the cold ground, wrapped in a thin, tattered cloth. The faint cry of a human baby echoed from the darkness. The child's wails carried through the night, sharp and desperate, but the nearby alien village remained silent. The villagers had long whispered that the cave was cursed, that strange spirits lived inside, and no one dared venture close. Predators prowled nearby, sensing the infant's vulnerability, but none dared enter the cave. It was as though some invisible force kept them away. The baby's cries were the only sound that broke the stillness, weak but persistent. High above, on a plateau that overlooked the cave, a massive shape stirred. Thaler, the ancient dragon, had sensed the disturbance. His golden eyes opened slowly, reflecting the dim light of the alien sun. The dragon had slumbered for decades, resting in a hidden lair deep within the mountains. His scales were old and scarred, each marking a story of battles and survival. Yet, beneath the layers of age and strength, a spark of curiosity and instinct had awakened. Something small, fragile, and human had called to him. With a graceful sweep of his enormous wings, Thaler rose into the air, gliding silently toward the cave. The wind rattled the rocks as he descended, his massive form casting a shadow over the entrance. He paused, observing the tiny figure curled on the cave floor. The baby's chest rose and fell unevenly with each cry, and Thaler's senses detected the faint warmth of life. Despite the difference between their species, a gentle instinct stirred within him, a desire to protect, to nurture. Thaler stepped carefully into the cave, claws clicking softly against the stone. He lowered his massive head closer to the baby, studying him with keen eyes. The infant froze, sensing the dragon's presence. But there was no fear in Thaler's gaze, only a steady, calm attention. Slowly he extended a claw, lifting the bundle with delicate precision. The baby's cry turned into a small gasp, but he did not struggle. Thaler's warmth and careful touch conveyed a promise. No harm would come here. Outside, the wind carried the sound of the baby's cries, but within the cave, it softened. Thaler settled onto a bed of rocks, curling around the child protectively. The dragon's immense body radiated warmth, and the baby gradually relaxed against it. Thaler's eyes watched every twitch of the small hands, every shiver of the tiny body, as if he were learning the rhythms of this fragile human life. Time passed slowly. The sun dipped lower in the sky, casting long shadows across the cave. Thaler remained alert, scanning the darkness for any threat. Predators prowled the cliffs, and the dragon's sharp senses detected every movement. None dared approach. The ancient creature's presence alone was enough to keep the world outside at bay. The baby's cries became quieter, replaced by soft coos and the gentle rhythm of breathing. Trust was forming even in the smallest way. Thaler shifted, letting the child nestle closer to his chest. He used the tip of his tail to gently sweep aside jagged stones that could harm the baby, and his massive wings arched around them like a protective canopy. The cave was no longer a place of danger. It had become a sanctuary. The dragon had claimed it as a home, and the baby was now part of it. As the night deepened, stars appeared through cracks in the cave ceiling, tiny points of light that reflected off Thaler's golden scales. He lowered his head, nuzzling the child carefully, testing the baby's response. The infant's small hand brushed against the dragon's muzzle, and Thaler rumbled softly, a sound that resonated like a heartbeat. It was the first exchange of understanding between them, a silent recognition that they belonged together. The next days followed a rhythm of cautious care. Thaler learned to adjust his movements to avoid startling the baby, lifting him only when necessary and keeping him warm in the cold nights. He discovered that the infant responded to sound and vibration, and Thaler used his low rumble to soothe the baby when cries echoed through the cave. Each interaction strengthened the bond, small and tentative but undeniable. One morning, as the alien sun rose weakly through the clouds, Thaler carried the baby to a shallow pool near the cave entrance. The water reflected the light, and the baby's wide eyes followed the ripples. The dragon gently splashed water with a claw, showing the child the reflective surface and teaching him about movement, sound, and touch. Even at such a young age, the baby began to respond, babbling softly, reaching out toward the ripples, and exploring the tiny world around him with curiosity. In the shadows outside the cave, predators lingered, but Thaler's presence remained a shield. Even the most daring creatures kept their distance, sensing the immense power of the ancient dragon. It was a balance of strength and gentleness, a reminder that protection did not always come from aggression. It could come from presence, care, and the willingness to nurture. By the end of the first week, the baby had grown accustomed to the rhythm of life with the dragon. He slept against Thalar's chest, stirred at the dragon's gentle rumbles, and began to react to the world around him. Thalar watched over him constantly, sensing potential, intelligence, and the resilience that humans carried even in their smallest forms. The desert winds continued to howl outside, but inside the cave, warmth and life prevailed. The ancient dragon had awakened not only from his long slumber but also from centuries of solitude. He had found a companion, a responsibility, and a bond that would shape both their futures. The baby's cries, once desperate and abandoned, had transformed into the quiet beginnings of trust and understanding. As night fell and stars twinkled through the cave ceiling, Thalar lowered his massive head close to the baby, letting out a soft, vibrating rumble. The infant cooed back, tiny hands reaching toward the dragon's face. In that moment, the ancient creature understood something profound. He had become a guardian, a teacher, and a companion. And the human child, fragile and small, had become his world. The cave, once a place of abandonment and danger, was now alive with possibility. The dragon and the human had begun a story that would echo across mountains, deserts, and eventually the stars. Trust had taken root, courage would grow, and the partnership between a human and an ancient dragon had begun. A bond that would change both their lives forever. Outside, the wind howled, indifferent to the world within the cave. But inside, a small human and a colossal dragon lay together, safe for the first time, their journey only just beginning. The abandoned cry had found its answer, and the galaxy's story of courage, care, and unexpected companionship had taken its first breath. The first rays of the alien sun spilled over the jagged cliffs, casting the cave in a warm, golden light. The baby, now named Aaron, stirred against the warmth of Thalar's scales. The ancient dragon stretched, wings flexing carefully to avoid startling the small human. The bond between them had grown stronger since the day Thalar had found him. Though Aaron was still small, the dragon sensed a spark within him, something resilient and intelligent that called to be nurtured. Thalar decided it was time to teach Aaron more than just survival. The mountains surrounding their cave were vast and dangerous, but they held lessons about the world, its creatures, and the balance of life. Carefully, Thalar lifted Aaron onto his back, cradled gently by the dragon's claws. The boy clung to his scales, wide-eyed as they glided over cliffs and canyons. The wind tugged at Aaron's hair and clothes, but he laughed, a sound so bright it made the dragon rumble in amusement. "Hold tight," Thalar rumbled softly. "The world is bigger than you can imagine, but it is not cruel if you respect it." Aaron nodded, though he could not yet understand the full meaning of the words. The dragon's lessons would come slowly, through experience rather than speech. Their first lesson was balance and awareness. Thalar led Aaron along narrow ledges high above the valley floor. "Step carefully," the dragon instructed, and the boy mimicked, testing his feet on the rough stones. Even a small slip could have been dangerous, but Thalar's claw stayed near, ready to steady him. The air was thin, the wind strong, but Aaron began to understand how to feel the world beneath him, how to trust his instincts, and how to move with purpose. Next, Thalar taught Aaron about patience. The dragon led him to a grove of alien predators, creatures that hunted silently, blending perfectly with the rocks and plants. "Watch and wait," Thalar whispered. "Learn without disturbing." Aaron crouched behind a boulder, following the movements of the predators. He began to notice patterns, the way their legs shifted, how they breathed, and how they sensed danger. Slowly, the boy learned that power was not always about strength. Sometimes, understanding and patience were greater weapons than claws or teeth. Food and survival were the next lessons. Thalar brought Aaron to a pool fed by melting ice from the cliffs. The boy learned to drink carefully, to recognize which plants were safe, and which creatures could be dangerous. The dragon showed him how to listen to the wind, to sense shifts in temperature and vibrations in the ground. Each day, Aaron became stronger, faster, and more aware. The human child, once abandoned and weak, was beginning to thrive in the harsh environment. One morning, Thalar brought Aaron to a high plateau overlooking the valley below. "The world is not only what you see close to you," the dragon said. "Look far, think far. Danger and opportunity exist in every corner. Learn to see both." Aaron peered over the cliff, tracing the paths of rivers, the shadows of creatures moving in the distance. Slowly, he began to understand strategy, how movement and awareness could protect life and create advantage. As the days passed, Thaler taught Aaron more than survival. He taught him courage. One evening, a pack of alien predators ventured closer to the cave than usual. Aaron froze at first, heart pounding. But Thaler nudged him gently. "Stand," he rumbled. "Face them, but do not fight recklessly. Courage is knowing when to act and when to wait." Aaron rose slowly, his small hands shaking but his eyes determined. Together they faced the pack, not with aggression but with presence. Thaler's size and the boy's careful movements convinced the predators to retreat, leaving them unharmed. Aaron felt pride for the first time, understanding that bravery was not just about fighting but about control and awareness. Communication became another lesson. Thaler had long been able to speak in low rumbles and subtle gestures, and he began teaching Aaron the basics. The boy could now understand simple commands, follow directions, and even signal to the dragon in ways that others could not. It was a silent language, one born of trust and attention. Aaron learned to mimic certain sounds, and the dragon responded, strengthening their connection. Exploration was a constant part of their life. Each canyon, cliff, and hidden grove became a classroom. Thaler encouraged Aaron to notice everything: the way sunlight reflected off rocks, how shadows moved, how the wind carried scents. Aaron learned that understanding the world required both observation and intuition. Each discovery, each small success, added to his growing confidence. One night, under the alien stars, Thaler lowered his head close to Aaron, who had fallen asleep against the dragon's chest. "You will face a world that fears you," Thaler rumbled softly. "But you have gifts. Use them wisely. Strength comes not only from muscles but from mind and heart." The boy stirred, pressing his small hand against Thaler's snout, unaware of the full meaning but feeling the weight and comfort of the dragon's wisdom. The bond between them deepened with each passing day. Thaler began to see that Aaron was not just a child to protect, but a companion who could learn, adapt, and even teach in ways he had not expected. The human's cleverness and curiosity were remarkable. Even in infancy, Aaron displayed a spark that hinted at what humans could achieve when guided and trusted. The mountains themselves became part of their lessons. Thaler encouraged Aaron to climb cliffs under careful watch, to navigate narrow ledges, and to understand how terrain could be both a refuge and a challenge. They practiced strategies for avoiding danger, for observing from a distance, and for making the best use of the environment. Aaron began to see the world not as a place to fear, but as a puzzle to understand and a landscape to respect. Through each trial, the human child learned more about courage, intelligence, and empathy. Thaler watched as the boy grew in strength and awareness, understanding the value of patience, observation, and trust. And in turn, the dragon learned something too: the capacity for humans, even small and fragile, to possess resilience, determination, and cleverness beyond expectations. By the end of the season, Aaron could navigate the mountains almost independently, signal to Thaler in the silent language they shared, and even predict the movements of nearby predators. He was stronger, wiser, and more confident, a human shaped by care, intelligence, and the lessons of an ancient dragon. Thaler looked down at the boy one morning, standing atop a plateau with the wind tugging at his hair. "You are ready," the dragon rumbled. "Not for the world yet, but for the challenges to come. You will face dangers and you will succeed. Trust yourself as you have trusted me." Aaron smiled, though he did not yet fully understand the words. He felt the truth of them in his chest, in the courage he had discovered and the bond he shared with the ancient dragon. As the sun rose over the mountains, casting light across the valleys and cliffs, Thaler and Aaron prepared for the next stage of their journey. The lessons of the mountain had been hard, but they had forged strength, intelligence, and trust. And in that quiet dawn, a new chapter of their story was ready to begin. A story where a human raised by a dragon could face the galaxy with courage, wisdom, and a bond unlike any other. The mountains whispered in the wind, carrying the story of a boy and a dragon who had begun to change not only each other, but the world around them, one careful step at a time. The sun had barely risen over the jagged cliffs when Thaler and Aaron sensed something different in the air. The winds that usually whispered through the canyons carried unfamiliar sounds: the metallic clatter of machinery, the low hum of engines, and distant voices speaking in a language that neither of them fully understood. Aaron's sharp eyes scanned the horizon, noticing figures moving in formation along the valley floor. Alien hunters. They had come to capture rare creatures, and Thaler's lair was known among the few who dared to enter these mountains. "Stay close," Thaler rumbled, his massive wings flexing as he moved closer to the cave entrance. Aaron nodded, gripping the dragon's scales tightly. The boy had grown strong and clever over the years, but he understood that this threat was far more dangerous than anything they had faced before. These hunters carried weapons designed to subdue even the largest creatures. Brute strength alone would not be enough. Thaler lowered his massive head, eyes narrowing as he studied the movements of the intruders. He could sense their intent, their caution, and their greed. "They seek me," he said softly, rumbling in a tone only Aaron could feel through the vibration of the scales beneath him. "And they will not leave without taking what they came for. We must be clever." Aaron thought quickly. He had spent years learning from Thaler, observing the land and understanding its hidden paths. "We can use the canyon," he said, pointing to a narrow passage that twisted like a snake between towering cliffs. "They won't fit all their machines there. We can trap them." Thaler's eyes gleamed with approval. The boy's intelligence and quick thinking were as vital as any weapon or wing beat. Together they moved silently through the canyon, Thaler carrying Aaron carefully on his back. The hunters advanced, confident that they would find the dragon asleep in his lair. They had no idea that the dragon was awake, alert, and accompanied by a human who had learned to read the mountains like a map. Aaron instructed Thaler to stop behind a large boulder that jutted out from the canyon wall. From their hidden vantage point, the boy could see the hunters' machines clattering over the rocky ground. "Wait until they're fully in the narrow section," he whispered. "Then we strike." Thaler rumbled in agreement, his massive claws digging into the stone as he prepared. The hunters moved forward, unaware of the trap. As the first machine entered the narrow passage, Aaron signaled with a small hand gesture. Thaler's tail lashed out with precision, knocking over a boulder that blocked part of the path. The hunters struggled to stop their vehicles, some crashing into the canyon walls. The dragon's roar echoed through the cliffs, a sound so powerful that it rattled their machinery and filled the hunters with fear. Aaron leapt from Thaler's back to a smaller ledge, carefully positioning himself to direct the dragon's attacks. "Left. Now!" he shouted, pointing as Thaler swung his wings, creating a gust that sent sand and debris tumbling onto the hunters. Machines skidded, alien voices shouted, and chaos erupted in the narrow canyon. Despite the danger, Aaron remained calm. He had learned to think quickly, to anticipate the hunters' moves, and to coordinate with Thaler seamlessly. The dragon obeyed each command with precision, using his size, strength, and wingspan to control the battlefield. They were a team, boy and dragon, predator and protector, mind and muscle working in perfect harmony. Some hunters attempted to retreat, but Aaron had predicted this. He pointed to a rocky outcrop that formed a natural barrier. Thaler lowered himself, wings creating a wall of shadow and wind. The hunters were trapped, unable to escape without facing the full force of the dragon. The boy's clever use of terrain and strategy kept them from harm while asserting dominance. As the hunters scrambled, Thaler's glowing scales reflected the morning sun, creating a dazzling display that disoriented the intruders. Aaron directed the dragon to produce controlled bursts of energy, enough to disable the machines without harming the hunters themselves. Sparks flew, engines stalled, and the canyon erupted in controlled chaos. The hunters, realizing they could not win against such intelligence and power, eventually fled, leaving behind their damaged equipment. Thaler lowered himself to the canyon floor, carefully watching the retreating figures. Aaron approached, brushing dust from his clothes, eyes shining with a mixture of fear and pride. "You were amazing," Thaler rumbled. "You guided me. You thought faster than they could." Aaron smiled, feeling the weight of their victory. "We worked together," he said softly. "That's why we won." The aftermath of the battle left the canyon littered with broken machines and displaced rocks, but Thaler and Aaron remained unscathed. The dragon's instincts and the boy's intelligence had combined perfectly, showing that strength alone was not enough. Strategy and courage were equally important. The humans, long underestimated by other species, were capable of extraordinary feats when guided and nurtured. That evening they returned to the cave, the air calm after the storm of the day. Aaron helped Thaler clear debris near the entrance, and together they repaired small damage to the cave's outer walls. The dragon's eyes glowed softly as he looked at the boy. "You have grown beyond what I expected," he said. "Not only strong in body but in mind and heart. The hunters underestimated you, and that is what gave us the advantage." Aaron sat on a rock, brushing his hands through the sand. "I learned from you," he said. "You taught me to see, to think, and to act. I only did what you showed me." Thaler's rumble shook the cave floor, a sound that could have been laughter or pride. "And in doing so you taught yourself. You are not just a human child anymore. You're a partner, a protector, a strategist, and soon the galaxy will see what humans can do." The night settled over the mountains, stars twinkling in the alien sky. Aaron lay against Thalar's chest, listening to the steady rumble of the dragon's heartbeat. He thought of the day's battle, of the hunters who had come seeking destruction, and of the victory they had earned not with brute force alone, but with courage, strategy, and trust. Thalar shifted, curling around the boy protectively. "Tomorrow will bring more challenges," he rumbled. "But nothing you have faced will be wasted. Every lesson, every trial, every danger will make you stronger." Aaron nodded sleepily, feeling the truth in the dragon's words. Even in the vast, dangerous mountains, he felt safe and capable with Thalar by his side. For the first time, Aaron realized the full power of their bond. They were not just dragon and human, they were a team capable of facing threats no one else could survive. The hunters were only the beginning. The galaxy beyond the mountains held challenges far greater, but together boy and dragon could overcome anything. As the wind whispered through the cliffs and the stars shone over the valley, the cave became more than a home. It was a fortress, a training ground, and a symbol of what courage, intelligence, and trust could achieve. The threat from below had been met, but it had also revealed the potential of a human raised by a dragon, a being capable of strategy, bravery, and resilience beyond what any alien could have expected. The mountains held their silence, but within the cave a new force had awakened. A boy and his dragon, ready to face the universe together, unafraid, intelligent, and strong. Their story, forged in the cliffs and battles of a remote alien world, was only beginning, and nothing would stop them from becoming legends across the stars. The sun rose over the jagged cliffs, painting the alien mountains in shades of gold and red. Thalar stretched his massive wings, letting the morning wind ripple through his scales. Aaron sat on his back, eyes wide with anticipation. Years had passed since the boy had been abandoned in the cave, and now he was strong, clever, and brave. The mountains had taught him much, but Thalar knew it was time for a new lesson, the world beyond the cave. "Today," Thalar rumbled, his deep voice vibrating through the rocks, "you will see that life is larger than these cliffs, larger than these valleys. The galaxy is wide and humans have much to learn and to teach." Aaron's heart raced with excitement. The dragon's words promised adventure, knowledge, and challenges unlike anything the boy had faced. They left the cave, gliding across the cliffs with the wind at their backs. Aaron clung tightly, feeling the rush of air and the height of the mountains beneath him. From this vantage, he could see the alien forests, rivers, and the distant plains where unknown creatures roamed. Each detail was new and he absorbed everything, the colors, the shapes, the patterns of life. Thalar guided him gently, showing how to notice small signs. A predator's tracks in the sand, the faint rustle of wings, the subtle shift of shadows indicating movement. Their first encounter was with an alien settlement on the edge of the mountains. Tall structures of metal and crystal gleamed in the sunlight, and strange beings moved about, wary of the approaching dragon. Thalar landed cautiously, wings folding, tail curling to keep the settlement safe. Aaron dismounted, walking carefully beside the dragon. The aliens froze, unsure whether to attack or flee. Aaron raised his hands, recalling the lessons of diplomacy Thalar had begun teaching him. "I come in peace," Aaron said, voice clear but respectful. The aliens hesitated, then relaxed slightly, seeing no weapon in his hands. Thalar lowered his head in a calm gesture. Slowly, the settlement's leader approached. He was tall, with shimmering skin and eyes that seemed to see everything. "Why does the dragon allow this human to approach?" the leader asked. Aaron stood tall, remembering Thalar's teachings. "Because he trusts me," Aaron replied simply. "And I wish to learn, not harm." The aliens studied him carefully, noticing the intelligence in his eyes and the confidence in his posture. Word spread quickly. A human raised by a dragon was unlike any human they had ever known. They asked questions, observed his movements, and tested his knowledge of the world. Aaron answered carefully, demonstrating lessons learned from years of survival, observation, and cooperation with Thalar. Over the next few days, Aaron and Thalar explored the alien settlements. They helped repair damaged structures, guided lost travelers, and demonstrated ways to coexist with the dangerous creatures of the planet. Thalar's presence alone kept predators and hostile factions away, but it was Aaron's insight, cleverness, and calm thinking that impressed the settlers most. Humans, they realized, were not weak or fragile. They could be strategic, inventive, and courageous when nurtured properly. One day, Aaron noticed a group of hunters approaching the settlement. They were smaller than the previous hunters, but they were armed and aggressive. Thalar prepared to defend, wings spreading wide, but Aaron stopped him. "Wait," he said, pointing to a narrow canyon. "We can guide them without fighting. Let's show them another way." Thaler watched, curious as the boy led the hunters through traps and diversions he had set, turning the canyon into a maze. By the time they realized the mistake, they had been led safely away from the settlement. The aliens were amazed. "This human thinks as cleverly as a dragon," one whispered. "He does not rely on strength alone." Aaron felt a surge of pride. He looked at Thaler, who rumbled softly, clearly impressed. "You are learning well," the dragon said. "Not just survival but leadership, strategy and compassion. These are gifts of both mind and heart." The exploration continued beyond the planet's mountains. Thaler and Aaron traveled across alien forests, deserts and rivers, observing civilizations that were wary, curious and sometimes hostile. Aaron used what he had learned in the mountains to communicate, mediate and protect. He began to see that humans had unique potential. They could learn, adapt and form alliances in ways other species struggled to do. And when combined with Thaler's power, they became a force capable of shaping outcomes across worlds. One evening, perched on a cliff overlooking a vast alien city, Aaron spoke to Thaler. "Do you think humans can truly survive out here?" he asked. Thaler's golden eyes glowed in the setting sun. "Not only survive," he said, "but thrive. Humans are underestimated across the galaxy. They are clever, adaptable, and resilient. With guidance and trust, they can do what others cannot imagine." Aaron thought about his own journey, from an abandoned baby in a cold cave to a boy who had learned the ways of mountains, the language of dragons, and the ways of survival. He had faced danger, learned patience, courage, and strategy, and now he was discovering the wider galaxy. He understood that his bond with Thaler was more than companionship. It was a partnership, a source of strength that could influence entire civilizations. As the stars began to appear in the alien sky, Thaler and Aaron camped on the cliff. Fires burned gently below, casting shadows over the rocks. Aaron looked up at the constellations, thinking of all the worlds he had yet to see, all the lessons he had yet to learn. "Do you think they will accept me?" he asked quietly. Thaler lowered his massive head, nuzzling the boy. "They will not have a choice," the dragon rumbled. "They will see what humans can do when they are brave, clever, and guided by trust. You are not just a human child. You are a bridge between worlds, a symbol that strength comes in many forms." The night was calm, but the galaxy was full of unseen challenges. Aaron had learned to trust Thaler, to trust himself, and to use intelligence and courage to face any threat. The world beyond the cave was vast and unpredictable, but he was ready. Together, the boy and the dragon had become more than teacher and student. They were partners, explorers, and protectors. The next morning, they would continue their journey, leaving the mountains behind and stepping fully into the unknown. Alien civilizations, dangers, and wonders awaited them, but Aaron felt ready for everything. With Thaler at his side, he could face anything. The boy had grown from abandoned infant to a human capable of shaping the galaxy's perception of his kind. And the dragon had found in him not only a companion, but a partner whose courage and intelligence could match even the oldest and wisest creatures of the stars. The mountains faded behind them as they glided into the open sky. The world beyond the cave stretched endlessly, full of life, mystery, and challenges. And above it all, a boy and a dragon soared together, ready to face the galaxy, change minds, and create a story that no one would ever forget. The galaxy stretched endlessly before them, a sea of stars and distant planets, each filled with life, danger, and opportunity. Thaler and Aaron soared above it all, gliding effortlessly through the void, their bond stronger than ever. Years had passed since Aaron was the abandoned baby in a cold cave, and now he was a boy shaped by mountains, dragons, and the challenges of survival. But the galaxy had more to teach, and it demanded courage, intelligence, and heart. Thaler rumbled softly as they flew toward a distant system. "You are ready, Aaron. Not just to survive but to influence, to lead, and to inspire. The galaxy has forgotten the strength of humans. You will remind them." Aaron tightened his grip on the dragon's scales, feeling both pride and responsibility. He understood that their journey was not only about survival, it was about legacy. Their first challenge arrived without warning. A starship appeared on the horizon, alien and sleek, its engines humming with power. On board were explorers and soldiers from a civilization that had long underestimated humans. They had heard rumors of a boy who traveled with a dragon and came to investigate. Their scanners detected Thaler's massive form and Aaron's unusual presence. "Prepare to engage," one of the alien commanders ordered. But Thaler tilted his head, observing. Aaron placed a hand on the dragon's muzzle. "Wait," he said. "Let's see if they understand reason before we fight." Thaler's eyes glowed softly as he lowered his wings, a gesture of calm and control. The starship approached and a smaller craft descended to meet them. From it, a delegation of aliens stepped forward, cautious and curious. Aaron raised his hands, speaking clearly, "We come in peace. We are not your enemy." The aliens studied him, surprised by his confidence and intelligence. A human they realized could be clever and brave. And with a dragon as companion, the possibilities seemed limitless. Over the next days, Aaron and Thaler traveled between systems, mediating conflicts and demonstrating the value of intelligence, strategy, and cooperation. Aaron guided planets to share resources, teach knowledge, and protect endangered species. Thaler's presence ensured safety and awe, but it was Aaron's insight, courage, and quick thinking that won trust and respect. Humans, long underestimated, were seen anew. They were not fragile, weak, or predictable. They were resilient, innovative, and capable of shaping outcomes across the galaxy. One day they arrived at a planet under siege by a rogue faction. Cities burned, and creatures both alien and native were fleeing in terror. Aaron instructed Thaler to create barriers using his immense strength, guiding fleeing populations to safety while avoiding unnecessary destruction. The boy coordinated efforts with local defenders, analyzing terrain, predicting enemy moves, and strategizing evacuations. Even the most skeptical leaders watched in awe as a human child orchestrated safety and strategy on a massive scale. When the battle ended, the rogue forces fled, overwhelmed by strategy, intelligence, and presence. Aaron stood atop a cliff, overlooking the survivors, and the calm restored. "They underestimated us," he said quietly, looking at Thaler. "But they learned." Thaler's rumble vibrated in agreement. "And they will remember. You are not just a boy. You are a symbol. You carry the fire of courage and the heart of intelligence. That is your legacy." Aaron began to understand fully what Thaler had meant. Humans had potential beyond the ordinary. With wisdom, courage, and trust, they could influence worlds, change perceptions, and form bonds that cross species, cultures, and even galaxies. The partnership between him and Thaler had proven that strength came not only from power but also from intelligence, empathy, and understanding. In time, Aaron became known across star systems as the Human of the Dragon, the boy who had been raised by an ancient creature and had grown to guide, protect, and inspire. Communities sought his advice, leaders consulted him on difficult decisions, and even rival civilizations paused to consider his counsel. The galaxy had learned to respect humans, not for their size or technology, but for their courage, cleverness, and heart. Yet Aaron never forgot his beginnings. He would often return to the mountains where Thaler had found him as a baby. The cave, now fortified and protected, remained a sanctuary, a place of learning, and a reminder of humility and growth. Aaron would walk the cliffs, feeling the wind, hearing the whispers of the mountains, and remembering the lessons that had shaped him: patience, observation, courage, and trust. Thaler, ever vigilant, would watch over him, proud of the boy who had become so much more. The dragon's eyes reflected stars, wisdom, and the quiet satisfaction of knowing that a small human, once abandoned, had grown to influence galaxies. Together, they had proven that even the smallest life could change the universe when nurtured, guided, and given trust. As years passed, Aaron trained new humans, teaching them the lessons he had learned from Thaler: to observe carefully, act wisely, and lead with both strength and heart. Communities of humans and aliens alike began to thrive, inspired by the stories of a boy and a dragon who had faced danger, adversity, and isolation, and had emerged as a force for hope and understanding. One evening, as two suns set over a distant world, Aaron sat with Thaler on a cliff overlooking a peaceful valley. "We have done well," Aaron said softly, watching settlements glow with life below. Thaler rumbled in contentment. "More than well. We have begun a legacy. The galaxy will remember what humans can do when guided by wisdom and heart. And it will remember that dragons too can teach, protect, and inspire." The stars shone brightly, stretching across the heavens, each one a world touched by their influence. Aaron reached out, brushing his hand along Thaler's scales, feeling warmth, strength, and trust. "I will keep learning," he said. "And I will help others just as you helped me." Thaler's tail wrapped gently around the boy, a sign of unity, trust, and eternal bond. Their legacy was more than victories or battles. It was the message that courage, intelligence, and heart could cross species, planets, and systems. It was the proof that humans, even when small or abandoned, could rise to greatness when nurtured and guided. And it was a testament to the bond between boy and dragon, teacher and student, companion and protector. As night enveloped the valley, Thaler spread his wings, and together they lifted into the sky. Stars reflected off his golden scales, and Aaron felt the thrill of adventure, knowledge, and purpose. The galaxy awaited, full of challenges and wonders, but they were ready. They would face the unknown together, a human and an ancient dragon, shaping worlds, inspiring life, and leaving behind a story that would echo for generations. Above the planets, beyond the moons, and across alien skies, their flight was a symbol: strength and heart, wisdom and courage, fire and loyalty. A legacy had begun. The legacy of a human and a dragon who had transformed a galaxy, proving that even the smallest beginnings could lead to greatness beyond imagination. And so, as stars stretched endlessly into the night, Aaron and Thaler soared onward, guardians, explorers, and legends of the universe, their bond unbroken, their purpose clear, and their story only just beginning.